talking about great people. I
Yeah.
mean, with yourself now as president, with David as CEO, obviously the transition from Nick is going to happen. How would you define the culture within the cannabis, and
Yeah.
how do you perceive the culture moving forward?
Hey everyone, welcome to our latest TDR Cannabis exclusive. This is part 2 of the Cannabis this week. There was big news earlier this week pertaining to new moves amongst the executive leaders within the actual company. We had David Hart on earlier this week, who's the new CEO, and Jesse Channon appointed as the president of the company. So let's welcome him in, a friend of the podcast, back to the podcast. Happy New Year. I think we can still say that, not for much longer. But first off, congrats. How you feeling, President?
I mean, feel great, feel exactly the same. Just have this, this new title that everybody keeps making fun of me. So yeah,
A lot of
seems
responsibility. 2024, we're here. This is a big year for the industry, right? I know we've been talking about the explosive growth of this industry over the last 3, 4, 5 years, but this year, I think when you look at 2024, moment of truth, we could get some big announcements that really takes this industry to the next level. Are you anticipating and feeling the same way?
I do. I've always looked at 24, and I think we even talked about this late last year when we got together. 24 for me was always going to be a foundational year where there was going to be this turnaround where everyone knew it was coming, right? And I think that's what we're seeing. A little light reading of 552 pages gets delivered, at the end of the week. It's, good weekend reading. That's a huge moment because it shows that change is that we've always felt was inevitable, right? Like writing's on the wall, like here it comes. And it's going to come in phases. It's going to come in stages. It always takes longer than anyone wants. But I think 24 is the year where you start to see a bunch of this upside, a bunch of this momentum. Things start to become talked about as inevitable. And now it's like, get ready. Like we have 24 is the foundational year that we have to put a bunch of things in place to be fully prepared to sort of capture the upside that I think is going to be in 25 and 26. So yeah, I think it's going to be a big year. I think it's going to be transformative.
Yeah,
but I think it really is the year that we look back on and say, "Oh boy, I'm glad we did the work and got the investments in place for 25 and 26."
Yeah.
So I was pretty floored when I read the HHS recommendation, the unredacted version. They said the quiet part out loud that we've all been thinking for some time now. I mean, what was your first take when you read that? And it actually was overly positive. It was almost like bulletproof enough to where HHS was like, here you go. And you guys now have no reason to say no to this. Like, this is going to get This is going to get dealt.
So to me, like when I read any part of it, the thing that immediately went in my head was that scene from like Dewey Cox, Walk Hard, where he keeps walking in and he's like, but I'll get a hangover. And he's like, no, you won't. Right. But it's expensive. It's the cheapest thing you could buy. Like it read like that, where it was like everything that we've all talked about. That there is an actual benefit to this. There's a therapeutic nature to it. It's probably beneficial to research. There's medicinal properties. Oh, by the way, it in no way is nearly as damaging as anything else that we are saying it is surrounded by as Schedule 1. I think your quote of they put the quiet stuff out loud is exactly right. Yeah. It read exactly that way. And so now everyone, I think, is in the same position. We're all looking across the aisle going, so it's pretty obvious what we do next, right?
Yeah. That's for sure.
Where the rubber meets the road.
Well, let's dive into the announcement earlier this week. David Hart, new CEO. You're the president. He joined the company 8 years ago. You joined 4 years ago. He worked with venture-backed healthcare companies, or should say startups. You worked in the agency world with some of the largest brands that included Microsoft, Red Bull, AT&T. He's in his early 40s. You're in your late 30s. Some could say you're now walking into arguably the prime years of your working career. So, as investors are highly anticipating, they want this story to succeed. There's a hot, group of investors that are watching this story closely. They want you guys to win. What would you say to this point is what this company has done right? And then how you put, basically your fingerprints to take this company to the next level as to like what you guys have focused on for the upcoming year?
No, look, it's a great question. I mean, to all of those who are interested, we will win. I mean, that's going to happen. We're going to win, right? I think there's going to be several winners. I really still feel that way. This is an incredible industry to be a part of. When I look back at the things that we did great, and then how do we capitalize on that, and what are the things that we focus on and do great moving forward? I think that up until you can make the argument over the last couple of years, the hallmark of who we were as a business was complexity. We had so many licenses. We're in so many markets. We have, strict medical here and mature adult use in Colorado. And we have this and we have that and markets that are flipping. And so there's all this complexity. And I think that we embraced that chaos. We leaned into it. We raised money. We built out incredible facilities. We have a world-class footprint. We have scale in all of the markets that matter to us moving forward. Just we can grow. There's no CapEx to be deployed to grow and take advantage of these markets that are going to flip adult use or that are continuing to expand. Yeah. So I feel great about that, right? Where do we go moving forward? We just have to be honest with ourselves about how simple the formula for winning is moving forward. And that is fully embracing the reality of who we are as a business, the people that we serve today, the people that we're going to serve tomorrow, right? We're not creating a market. There is a market that exists. We are just trying to convince many constituents inside of that market that safe, tested, reliable product is a better way to go. And to do that, it's got to be accessible and it has to be affordable. And so as these markets continue to mature, as we continue to find ways to engage with that customer base to say, this is great product that you can put in your body, you know exactly where it's from, it's incredible quality, and it's affordable. That's a winning combination. So our business is plants and people. That's it, right? Grow great plants, grow great people. If you can do that, you're going to be fine. Like that's an easy way to win. So I think removing some of this self-created complexity to who we are and to what this business is, and embracing what we are and just going from good to great in all of these areas of the supply chain that we can. That's the focus, and I think it's all of us.
So we're talking about great people. I mean, with yourself now as president, with David as CEO, obviously the transition from Nick is going to happen. How would you define the culture within the Cannabist, and how do you perceive the culture moving forward as the business grows into this next chapter?
So we are an incredibly talented organization, right? I think one of the things, if you talk to Nick about one of the things that he's most proud of from his legacy, you spent 12 years building this company from nothing to this, right? Which is just bananas. So if you know Nick and you asked him, what is the thing that you're the most proud of? The legacy. He's going to tell you it's the team, right? Like he honestly believes, and I believe he's right, that he put together one of, if not the most talented team, top to bottom, on the field. And so we have incredible talent. I mean, you can look at the background of the individuals that are at this company from, junior executive level and up, right? And we're loaded. So what do we need to do? We need to empower them, and we need to teach them, like at any great startup, it's okay to fail. Let's just fail fast. Let's learn and let's move on. Let's build something great, unleash some creativity, figure out better ways to engage with our consumers, engage with our communities. We'll be fine. That needs to be the focus.
I think, from what I'm seeing and hearing, the Cannabis name, the switch, is really starting to hit home amongst a lot of people. Columbia Care, as I said to David in a podcast earlier this week, that it was definitely a medicinal play in this industry 6, 7, 8 years ago. Adult use is at the forefront now. But I really do think that the first step, changing the name, is actually starting to pay dividends amongst the investor base with the change, I think.
I mean, it's unapologetic, right? Like at the end of the day, we joked about this, I think Anthony and I were joking about driving by a sign in Florida, right? The last time that we caught up. There's nothing to apologize about what we do. We're very proud of what we do. We're very proud of the products that we create. We're proud to put them into people's hands that need them or want them. I don't judge why you need it or why you want it. That's not my job. I just want to make sure that you have a great experience getting them, and that when you bring it home and you use it, you're like, that was amazing. That's a high quality product, and I'm happy to go back again. So the Cannabist really is meant to be, it's named after the people, and it's meant to be a part of our DNA. And that is that we are unapologetic, we are passionate, and ultimately we should be creative and we should be innovative. We should be thinking about what's around the corner.
Yes.
Disruption is inevitable. I say it all the time, so sorry if it's repetitive, but disruption is inevitable. And there's one of three ways that you can look at it, right? You can be a catalyst for it, a participant in it, or you can die by it.
Yes.
And so we are not going to die by it. I can promise you that right now. Happy to participate. I would much prefer if we were a catalyst for things that we know need to change. And so it's time to get to work.
Yeah.
So speaking about disruption, I mean, obviously the big part of the conversation right now is that Schedule 3, the regulatory landscape shifting. I don't talk about this with many executives as they're mostly the numbers guys, but you're the perfect guy for this. Do you feel that the cannabis industry is going to change from a marketing perspective fundamentally on the back end of Schedule 3, being able to leverage like experiential mass marketing tactics? Like, do you think that's going to be flipped on its head, or it's going to be it's going to be a lot of what we've already seen from a marketing perspective in the industry?
So I say this, I don't mean any disrespect to myself or anyone else who's been doing the work over the last few years, right?
Yeah.
Cannot stay the same.
Yeah.
It has to evolve. We have to engage. There's a reason that big CPG and big consumer facing brands do the things that they do. It's because it works, right? When someone tells you you're trying to be like the Apple of something, it's like, I hope, because they spend a whole lot of money on market research and I can't afford it. So if they're doing it, I should probably do it too, right? So I think that when it comes to that sort of engagement, marketing, advertising, experiential, when we think about brand partnerships, when we think about education, when we think about being able to talk about our products differently, right? Position things differently as far as, not necessarily explicit claims, but utility-based products and what they're really meant for and how they're really supposed to be used. We have to get there. Like that people buy solutions, right? Like and we have products that align to solutions that people are looking to integrate in their life. We have to tell stories better.
Yeah. When I spoke to David earlier this week, I said skill set, strong skill sets. He's obviously streamlining a lot of everything, and you are the creative idea person. You've built relationships. You worked in the agency world with some of the biggest brands in the world. Red Bull, obviously, it's not just about the product, it's about lifestyle. And I see a lot of similarities with Red Bull, and I do in the cannabis space. You've rubbed elbows with some of the biggest influencers in the space: Snoop Dogg, Mike Tyson, Hulk Hogan, Gary Vaynerchuk, all these people. When you come up with these creative ideas, again, being appointed as a new company, and to Anthony's point with the question being like, if rescheduling opens up to like marketing opportunities and that sort of thing, what do you think is the most important thing to get going as far as, yes, changing the name, but continue to build brand and lifestyle to make basically grow the company, grow the industry, more awareness?
So we've got great brands. We've got great partnerships. We're announcing more partnerships, right? Like partnerships is a part of who we are in our DNA. I'm not going to apologize for that. I think that there's incredible brands that deserve to be all over this country. So we're going to continue to lean into that. We've been very fortunate to work with some of the people that you mentioned, right? Around launching brands. And, I think they've done an amazing job. I think we can get back to work with several of them. When I think about what does that mean, look, you have to separate. It's tough to in this industry, but you have to separate the two sides of the equation. We have a platform that is vertical in nature that produces products for both our first party and our third party brand partners. We have to utilize those assets. We have to continue to lean in, right? We have to do the best job possible at sweating what we have and create scale. So that's one side. On the other side, we have to challenge ourselves to compete in the brand marketplace, to build great brands that build loyalty, that speak to lifestyle, however it is that you want to look at it. I think we're doing that. I think our team is great. And I think brands like Seed and Strain and Classics and 777, Amber, Heady, Press, these are brands that have great followings in a number of markets. When you look at I think it was Headset just posted some open source data back in November or December that showed like a graph you can put in any brand that you want. And almost all of those brands that I mentioned were in the growth or strong growth category. Right. So we continue to take market share. We continue to grow. But I personally think our platform and our retail as a part of that platform, just get the best brands that you can and put them on shelf and make people happy. Yeah. And so, when we launched Old Pal and Arrow and more to come, we're going to be announcing several more over the next couple of months. These big brands that should be massive national brands, I want to be their partner. I want to bring them into markets. I want to help to make sure that consumers can engage with them. And I want people to come to a Cannabist location or any of the locations inside of our retail portfolio because they enjoy the shopping experience and they know those brands are going to be on shelf.
Yeah.
Do you see the wholesale business as an integral part of the business moving forward in
Absolutely.
the markets that you're in?
Absolutely. We have made a significant investment and a huge effort coming out of last year into this year to fundamentally change the way that we do wholesale. And I can tell you, I think we have two issues there. I think one is a company issue and one is an industry issue. I think from a company issue point of view, we're solving that. We've got positions open. We've got incredible leadership in positions already in wholesale. We're having really meaningful conversations with partners around enterprise supply agreements and all of the things that you would expect. So I'm very positive on what we're going to be able to do from a wholesale point of view. Yeah. On the other side, we just have a technology, infrastructure, and supply chain issue as an industry with regards to how to properly do wholesale. So, we're going to have to get on that. We're going to have to fix what that looks like for us too.
Now, do you feel like that's a function of the tech that's been leveraged, or you feel like it's a function of just the convoluted nature of the cannabis industry, with everything being at the state level and just being hindered by regulation as it relates to wholesale?
I mean, I think like most things in cannabis, we could probably say it's a little bit of all of it, right?
Yeah.
I think that, there's some great tools out there, right? So like I look at Leaf Trade, right? And like what Mike and the team at Leaf Trade built, perfect, right? Like that's something that needs to exist. What it can never do, though, is get truly integrated into our supply chain, our facilities, everything. Like we need to bring those terrestrial data sets online to be able to have a more complete view and more transparency of what's going on inside of our world. I think if we can crack that and we can solve that, it could be a blueprint for others, right? It's rising tide, all boats. Like it's not that but if we can do that as a company, I think it gives us an incredible advantage in the wholesale market.
One of the topics that I hear time and time again from a lot of people in a lot of different companies is safe product, knowing what's getting inside your body. And, I think to combat against the black market, you have to obviously have that sort of approach. And, one might think, is that just a sales pitch that a publicly traded company that's, selling legalized cannabis to combat against the black market? But I'd be curious, and this may be a question for both of you, how much of a growing trend and importance amongst the consumers that are regular, frequent shoppers, providing feedback that is extremely important to them, that it's, we want to know exactly what we're getting, what's, putting inside our bodies, and really steering away from the black market.
Look, I think it's incredibly important. I think we have a health crisis in this country, right? That's probably not getting nearly enough airtime with regards to fentanyl and a number of other substances that are just, I mean, the potential impact is devastating on what can happen in this country. So I think supply chains are incredibly important across everything, right? Like this is a really touchy subject because I don't in any way want to say that someone who has a small grow or who's even growing their own plants or anything like that cannot grow safe product. That is not what I'm saying. Yep. What I'm saying is when you walk down the streets of New York City, you know that product had to go through many hands before it ended up in that bodega. Yeah, I would really like to know what hands it went through. I would really like to know where it went from. So you have situations where you could have something with the best of intentions. You could have a product that was thoughtfully and carefully grown by a family farmer in Northern California, that by the time it gets to New York City, it's been in some trucks, it's been in some warehouses, it's been in some places that you may not have wanted your product to be. And so when you say the black market, let's be honest, a large percentage, I'm not going to guess, a large percentage of black market product is legal product. Yeah. That is just moving across state lines that it's not supposed to. Yeah. Ending up in places it's not supposed to. There's also an enormous percentage that is supposed to look like real product, but it's not. Yeah. Right? We as consumers should be able to make that decision on putting those things into our body with complete transparency. That is what regulations owe us as consumers. And regs that prohibit scaled cultivation and manufacturing processes inside of these markets create a world in which the price will never be truly competitive. And now you are forcing people to make a decision for a difference of $15 an eighth, whether or not they're going to put something safe inside their body. That's not okay. That's not fair.
Yeah, I bring this up because we actually spoke with the BDSA analytics team last week. And in some cases, as little as 3 years ago, let's say in some specific states, there was only like, say, 30% of people within that state had ever consumed cannabis. In some states, that's grown to over 60% in just 3 years. So, just the overall image, the perception of this industry, it's definitely changing in a short period of time from what I'm seeing.
There's no
Oh
question.
yeah.
I had a funny conversation in Vegas about that. Somebody was like, "Do you think that New York could be a $5 billion cannabis market?" I said, "New York is a $5 billion."
It is. Yeah.
What you're asking me is what percentage of it am I going to sell? But
Yeah.
I mean, it's already there. This country loves weed.
Yeah.
Sorry, secret's out. And the better job that we can do of distributing and making accessible, safe, and affordable product is just better for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day that was modeling out Florida to be a $7 to $8 billion market by like 2030. And I was like, yeah, that's a little bit lofty. But they're like, well, there's about 140 million people that come through the state, citizens and or residents and tourists on an annualized basis, and that's how we get here. I was like, all right, well, it's the numbers make sense.
Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Florida's going to be a big market. I think what's interesting about Florida is that Florida arguably has the best distribution infrastructure in the country,
Yeah.
and it's medical. There's almost
Yeah.
as many dispensaries as there are Starbucks in Florida right now. I think there's 600. There's 800 Starbucks. So by the time that day comes, how many ways is the pie being sliced? That's a big question.
Yeah.
Big question. I think you're actually going to see potentially a reduction in retail locations with adult use, just because certain are going to shine and outshine everything else in the portfolio, and you're just going to have to cut the fat at some point. There's
I agree.
there's a glut.
That's
You could argue there's a glut of no one wants to talk about it, but you could argue that there is a glut of retail in Florida currently. If you want to go on a gram per store basis and talk about sales velocity, there could be some refining and some business plans within the state, but that's a whole nother episode.
Whole other episode. And,
yeah.
You got to look at the fact that it's forced verticality right now. So if you're going to be, if Florida's going to be your bet, which look, we have 14 out of 86 stores there, right? Most other MSOs in our position are 35 to 55, 60% allocated in Florida, right?
Yeah.
So, we're sort of like we have our strategic bet in Florida. We've got some good facilities. We do some good work there. Team's happy. We serve communities. But if your big bet is Florida, these are some real questions, right? That you can answer.
I mean, there's a reason why GTI hasn't come in here and spun up 60 dispensaries. I think the wait and see approach to what it looks like on the back end of adult use and take a calculated approach to the state will pay off for some versus the open a new dispensary every week for others.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I don't think we have to look too far as change, because what I'm seeing more and more of a trend is, look, hats off to basically Nick, 12 years ago, like 12 years as a CEO of a company in this space, and cannabis, like that's like 40 years in some other sectors. Like, how much change have you seen? But what I'm starting to see more and more amongst companies is chairmen and CEOs are transitioning succession plans. And now we're appointing more of the operational executives like you and David. And that's coming to the forefront now. And I think they've done a lot of hard work, built the foundation. But as we start to emerge and it becomes more acceptable as far as a lifestyle in society in today's world, and let's face it, it has, because, some of those analytics are prime examples. I think this is what gets people really excited about stories like yourselves, because of your background, the streamlining approach, really understand the end product, the end consumer, and what they want, and the creative ideas that come to it. And not just with your company, but a lot of companies within the space. So, like I said, I don't think we have to look too far. It would obviously help a lot if we got some rescheduling. That would help things tremendously. And maybe we can finally get a win within this space. But it's exciting, to say the least, heading into 2024, I think.
We're excited. The team is excited. There's an enormous amount of positivity. It's, any change, no matter how well planned, always feels abrupt in the moment, right? So, there's a lot of people who are incredibly thankful for what Nick did, right? But he's going to be missed for sure. Our job is pick up the torch and start running, just finish the mission. So I think we've got a great game plan in place. I think nothing changes strategically because those changes took place in August. We reorganized the whole company, right? We restructured everything in August to divide front and back of house to get people in these elevated and specific roles throughout the supply chain. So I feel really good about the strategy. Now it's just about executing, finding efficiencies.
So
when you look at the map and the footprint, there's a lot of states that are going to flip here in the next 12 to 18 months, and that's the right word to use, activate, because you guys got a lot of dry powder that's getting ready to move.
Yeah, I think so.
in those markets.
Last thing I'll leave you with, if you're in front of a group of investors, you said there's going to be a lot of change here in 2024. It paves the way for 25 and 26. That's 2 years from now. So based on what is your vision, where is this company? What does it look like in 2 years from now?
I think 2 years from now, people will look back at 24 and they'll say they did exactly what they needed to be prepared to have a highly automated, highly efficient operation, to be able to grow in a non-linear way moving forward, right? So we can capture more and more upside without having to continue to deploy sort of a linear expectation of resources, whether it's human capital or just overall resources and activities. I think we are well positioned to be there because of the facilities and the infrastructure that already exists. My hope, what people say in 2 years, is they got out in front of a couple things. They did a couple things that were really interesting and really innovative through 24 and 25 that created more streamlined ways to manage the supply chain, more interesting ways to engage with customers. And honestly, it looked like they had a lot of fun doing it. So I think in 2 years, if they can look back and say that, I feel pretty good about it.
Your network as well with celebrities, is that something you would consider, as you build more and more relationships and build up some of your qualities and brands as the industry expands? Is that something you're going to look into?
I am willing to speak with any influencer or celebrity who has an authentic relationship with the plant, right? It's, I don't mean this as any offense to anyone. I just think that our consumers, pretty well educated. I think the word authentic is through and through for them. And so, when you look at the people that are having a lot of success right now, it's because they have stories that resonate with some segment of that audience that, yes, I get it. They're using it because they're in constant pain. They're using, you look at Hulk Hogan, right? Like Hulk's like my height now. He used to be like 6'7", right? Like he's had so many back surgeries. He's 4 inches shorter, right? So I think what you start to see is people that are using it to alleviate things in their life that they had to turn to other substances that had incredibly negative impacts on their life. Or with Mike, this makes me a better version of me, right? Yeah. That connects. People want to be around that because a lot of people are struggling with the same thing.
I'm going to show my age, but I was at the Pontiac Silverdome in Detroit, Michigan, 1987 WrestleMania 3, and I saw Hulk Hogan lift up Andre the Giant, all 525 pounds. So I can understand why he's probably had a few back surgeries, but that was the most epic moment, I think, in Hulk Hogan's history. No one forgets that.
I think the funniest thing I heard him talk about on an interview one time is he was like, that is not the reason that I had my back surgeries. If I would have known back then that my special move being dropping basically on my butt as hard as I could repeatedly over and over and over again, that was not a good idea. I probably wouldn't have done that.
It's actually a good point. Never thought of it that way. Yeah. Listen, congrats to you, David, the team, and hope our viewers get a better understanding as to what the vision is with the new appointments this week. And most importantly, best of luck, and let's keep in touch.
We appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for your time. Talk soon.
What is up, everyone? What'd you think of the video? Leave a comment below. And as usual, if you want to subscribe to our channel, then click on the link here. If you want to see more videos like this, then click on the link here. As usual, click on that bell right below us to get all the notifications, because at the end of the day, TDR sets the narrative, because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.